Hello, everybody. I'm super excited. We haven't had an author conversation in a few months, and I'm excited to be back. And today that I have Abir Sami Wood with us, and she is going to be sharing with us about the book that she wrote. It is a preteen young adult adventure, and it is The Revenge of Zachariah Kermit Higgins. Did I say that correct?
Correct, yes.
Yes. Very exciting. So I'm excited to begin to ask her some questions about that and to find out what it's like to be writing a preteen book. That's not something I have ventured into. And so, just having a different demographic in mind is always helpful to talk to people about how they do that. How do you get yourself into that mindset, and how do you focus on that particular audience? And so I'm excited to get to start asking some questions. But first, I want to do a share screen, and I want to show you Amazon. And here is Abir's Amazon author page. We all, if we have our books on Amazon, have an Amazon author page. And so here also is the cover for The Revenge of Zachariah Kermit Higgins. And you can click on it there, or you can just look it up directly. And you can, I'm clicking on it. Let's see if I can get it to open up. I want to open it up. Here we go. It's coming, it's coming. Here we are. And here is The Revenge of Zachariah Kermit Higgins, which I'm excited to find out about. So with that being said, I'm excited to jump back over here, and we're going to talk to Abir about writing and what got her started writing and why write a preteen book. It's exciting. So Abir, welcome.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you
for being with you.
Being a part of my novel writing class.
Oh, great. Yes, I'm glad. I'm happy to be part of your class.
So let us in on how you got started. What caused you to want to start writing?
Well, when I was a child, I always loved to listen to stories. I always would be chasing people around, like my mom, my grandmother, just tell me a story, tell me a story. And they didn't know many stories. Not my mom, not my grandmother. They mostly told me Little Red Riding Hood.
Right.
Then I one time was visiting my dad's sisters, and my grandmother lived there with them, my dad's mother. And I was asking them, tell me a story, tell me a story. And then they said, well, you have your grandmother here. She's just has lots of stories, and she knows lots of stories. And she was an elderly woman. She was blind, she was bedridden, and I just didn't pay much attention to her before that. I was like, really?
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, yeah, if you come sit next to me, I'll tell you a story. And she had all kinds of stories, like fantastical stories, just that she was told when she was a child. And that's all, like, probably constitutes like a folklore. Wow. That, was maybe never written. And unfortunately, I don't remember any of those stories except two of them. But the rest, she told me so many stories. I love them so much, but I don't remember the rest of them. I just remember two. And I used to tell them to my children, and my children loved them. But that's how I was always interested in stories. And then, I started writing as when I got older, just different stories and different things. And when I was like 16 years old, I wrote a novel, supposedly. It was a 15-page novel, and it was handwritten 15-page, and I have big handwriting.
Okay.
And but now I am kind of, over the years, I kept on rewriting that novel, and it got bigger and bigger, and I'm working on it currently.
Oh, and wonderful.
And that's what I was working on when I decided to write the book of The Revenge of Zachariah. And because I felt it was like a good story to write about. The other one was historical. So it was like, well, it can wait. It's, something that happened in the past, but that story seemed to be like more current, more, in need to be told.
Right.
Because it dealt with bullying, it dealt with catfishing, and these are all things that we all deal with, especially children.
Yes.
And catfishing, everybody deals with. We're all being subjected to that all the time. But bullying is mostly, with children, school aged, and maybe college aged. Yeah. So it was kind of a timely thing to write. So I interrupt that other one and started with that and finished it and published it, and then I'm back to this. I'm kind of slow, but I'm moving along.
Nothing wrong with that. And I love that you said that you stopped working on one to go to the one that needs told.
Yes.
The other one can wait. That's something that I think we forget as writers, and especially young writers.
Yeah.
We tend to think, oh, I've got to tell this one. I got to get it done. I got to get it done. But if there's something else that's burning that just absolutely has to get out, move on to that one. Let your passion tell the story that it's passionate about at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The other one can come back.
Yes.
And it may very well be that you weren't ready to tell that story just yet.
Yeah, perhaps.
Let it sit there.
Because that other story, had been kind of evolving over, the years. I've written it and then rewritten it and rewritten it, and and every time it gets a little bigger and bigger. And I think now it's in its final stages, at least. And then I'll have to do the edits and all of that.
Now, will it be a preteen novel, or will it be?
No, that one will be. I originally thought it would be a young adult. Maybe the beginning of it or the first part of it may work for that age group, but then I think now I'm thinking it's and based on different people's input, is it would be just a novel for grown-ups.
Right. So,
although older teenagers can read it, and I don't think it's a problem. I mean, as when we were growing up, we didn't have all these groups of things we talked about. We read. We just read, whatever has been written before. I don't know, stuff like Pride and Prejudice and.
Right. I read Wuthering Heights in 7th grade.
Yeah. Yeah. So they just didn't say, "Oh no, this is not for you, and this is for you, and this is for you." So we read whatever was available.
That's right. Oh, I fell in love with the writing of a woman named Victoria Holt when I was, probably 14, 15.
Okay.
Every single one of her novels. I mean, they were full-fledged adult romance mystery novels, and I devoured them as a teenager. Absolutely devoured them.
Yeah.
So, so we didn't have necessarily that category. I mean, in middle school, I had read the Sweet Valley High series, but I mean, that was young adult preteen. But I jumped straight from that into reading the classics and the beautiful books. I've always had a thing for Gothic romance. That's kind of my genre, where if I'm going to pick up an indulgent read, that's what I'm going to go for.
Okay.
Yeah. So tell me, what caused you to want to write a preteen novel and a young adult novel, and then were there any different things that you had to do in preparation for writing a young adult book as opposed to what you would do for a grown-up book?
Well, I mean, the characters are younger. I mean, they are 12 and 13. So you have to kind of get down to that level of thinking and behaving and talking. And at that time, I had children, two boys close to that age,
Mhm.
plus their friends. So I was in a way immersed in that age group. And the story is very, very loosely based on something that happened in real life.
Okay.
It didn't happen to my children, but it happened to a friend of one of my sons. And it just kind of became a big issue in the school. I did not make it as a big of an issue here because I wanted it to stay kind of light and don't get it too dark.
Right. Right.
But yeah, that's kind of the seed that was planted inside my head. You need to
Mhm.
write this story about that because to me it seemed kind of unusual how creative they were.
Mhm.
Yeah, that boy who came up with this big scheme, how creative he was.
Now I'm intrigued.
Yes, it's just like when I was told, I was just amazed.
Hmm. And so his name, the name of the character is Zachariah Kermit Higgins. Where did that come from?
Oh, well, it just kind of came to me.
Okay.
Zachariah Kermit Higgins.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that is an amazing name. That's what my novel writing class, they just this last week had to write down some interesting characters from real life. Like they had to talk to their family and friends and get some information about just some odd characters that people know. And so we compiled a collection of these, and then you had to go in and give some of them names.
Okay. That sounds funny.
It's one of my favorite activities the whole semester because it's important what you name a character.
Yes,
Well,
yes,
and where we get those names, I mean, sometimes that's just their name.
yes.
Just
True.
is.
Sometimes you have this thing you just want to call that person this name. And you don't want to choose anything else. Sometimes you just have to choose a name based on certain criteria or certain things you're trying to achieve. So it's more kind of a deliberate thing,
Right.
but sometimes it just kind of it strikes you and that's it.
Right. It really does. I love character names. I mean,
Mhm.
when I come across them when I'm reading, I always wonder, like what was the author thinking, or did the author know this person, or it's always interesting to me as a writer to figure out
Yes,
where
yeah,
the names
I
come
can see
from.
that. Yeah.
Mhm. Like for instance, I have a character in one of my books called Stanley Box, totally named after a former student because I loved his name so much. And I said, "Can I use your name?"
Yes,
He was like, yeah. I was like, cool,
yes, yeah.
cool. Made me happy. So you said that you have children. Did having children help you write the story from more of a preteen perspective then?
Yes, very, very much. Because they were like always around me, always talking. I had my youngest son was just a big kind of talker and he liked to gossip about his classmates, about school, and he was always telling stories. This one did this one said that, and how when they had a fight or they had an argument and how they would argue. And so it well, and the different jokes and
Mhm.
that made them laugh, and to us they are quite lame.
Right, right. But did you keep a notebook of those things, or were you just able to remember those things as you
I
were
was able
writing?
to remember them. Yeah, I wasn't writing anything down.
Well, when you're living with boys, I think you tend to remember the things that they say.
Yes, yes, and their antics because they are just very interesting.
Absolutely. It's a completely different way of viewing the world for
Yeah,
certain. You're looking through those eyes. I just find it amazing that you were able to write a preteen novel. I have not tried that. So I'm intrigued at the idea. I wrote a children's book years and years and years ago, but a preteen's mind.
yes, yes. That's kind of by that time they were teenagers, but it was still fresh in my mind.
Mhm.
how they acted.
Did they help you with the story?
Somewhat. They did read it
Mhm.
and would give me feedback and what seems like kind of realistic, what doesn't seem.
Oh,
So they
one,
had input.
that's wonderful. I love that. How exciting. So
Yes,
were
yes,
they
I was
proud?
excited to have involved,
Right.
even though a little bit in my writing.
That's exciting. Ooh, maybe you're going to have some storytellers there too.
Yeah, who knows?
Mhm. I want you to write a book about your grandmother and her
Yeah,
storytelling.
one day, yeah. I mean, she wasn't a public storyteller. She just, I guess, heard these stories and she kept on remembering them, unlike the others.
That's wonderful. Absolutely
Who-
wonderful. I mean, back
Yeah,
in those days, I mean, they without television and without, all of the resources that we have today, it was oral storytelling. It was
yeah,
passed down.
yeah. Even when I was growing up, we didn't have many books around, except whatever the school wanted us to buy. But otherwise, at least in the homes I was in, there were rarely any books.
Mhm.
I mean, there were some, but not a lot.
But you had a driving need for stories.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was happy with them to be oral.
Mhm.
I didn't have to have a book.
Mhm. Oh, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful. It doesn't matter like how the story comes as long as the story is told.
yes.
I think that's
Uh,
something we have to keep in mind as folks who want to hold on to the paperback, it's
yeah,
it's it really doesn't matter how the story is told as long as it's told.
yeah.
That's
That's true.
that's a key thing now. So if you were to give some advice to young people, especially now, my class ranges in age from probably 16, 17 years old to I think I've got probably a student that's older than me.
All
So
right. Yeah.
what writing advice would you give? What are some things that you have learned over time that you think are helpful?
Well, I mean, it is a process. Writing is a process. You don't like sit there and just write and it's finished. You
Mhm.
have to go back and edit and rewrite and kind of refine here and refine there until you get a decent product.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it is not an easy thing. It's just as far as you write a book and then you're selling hundreds and hundreds. It's more like very. I think very few people can make a living
Right,
really from writing,
right. Yeah.
especially now. I don't. Maybe before it was easier, but now it's just like you have so much competition.
Mhm.
You have all these streaming services making all these shows. You have TV. You have you know books online,
Right,
uh, Amazon. I mean,
right,
self-publishing and
right.
self-publish. You can publish anything as a
Yes,
self-publish.
you can.
I mean, you can write like a book, and all you can put in it like I sit, I sit, I sit, and then the
Right,
last sentence, 300 pages of I sit, and the last sentence would be I sat, and then you put a cover on it, and then call it I
right.
sit, and it's just a book.
Mhm.
And then you can write a book and put a lot of time and resources into it, and hire people to help you with the editing, with the proofreading, with the cover, and just be at the same level. People will
Absolutely.
consider you like the other person. Both of you are self-published, and
Right,
maybe your book is not better than that book.
right. You are correct. You are
Yeah.
correct. We have an oversaturated market. I think that's something that people need to really be aware of.
Yes.
And not to be, Debbie Downers on the subject, but we need to be storytellers because we love stories.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You do it as a passion,
Mhm.
and if you get lucky and you strike it big, that's wonderful.
Right, absolutely. But for the rest of us. We tell
No.
stories because we love them and we
Yes.
do. And the story like exists in your head and your heart and your soul, and you have to put it out. You have to write it.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
And for you, like you saw some injustice and with the bullying, and you have to tell that story.
Yes.
And
Yes.
maybe it helps one person, maybe it helps two people, maybe those people go on to help 5 people. We just don't know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, how that thing will kind of snowball,
Right.
or could snowball. I don't know. But yeah, it's
I think
possible.
that's
Big
beautiful.
possible. Yeah.
And I love to be a part of that. I do. I love to be part of that. But it's, if I have children who are artistic, and my children like to draw and paint, and that's not my thing. And I'm like, where did that
Yeah.
come from? Because I draw with words and I paint with words.
Yes.
And it's just interesting that we can have such a variety of talent. And so we all need to, in order to find that fulfillment in life, you need to pursue what it is that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And if that story is there, tell it.
Yes, absolutely. You have a story, write it down, tell it, and and you can like make it as professional as you want. You can just make it, write it one time if you want, and just keep it, or just for yourself, for your family, and you can do as much
Yes.
refining and editing and all of that as you want, and
Yeah.
go with as far as you'd like.
That's true. It really does kind of depend on
The
what
rule. Yeah.
what you are willing to do with it.
Yes.
What would you say is your editing process?
Well, usually whenever I'm writing, I kind of tend to kind of write, and then maybe something today, and then the next time I go back to it and kind of clean it up a little bit, and sometimes kind of stay in within that scene depending on how important it is, and then I will have different ideas kind of come to me, and then I'll go back and do some adjustments, and then I move on. And so I tend to go back and forth.
Okay.
Sometimes you read advice that you just first time you write it, just you keep on writing, don't look back. And but sometimes it's hard for me to do that, because I have to kind of have a good footing in where I am, so I can continue and don't get lost in the different details.
Right.
But in a way, it is like you're telling a big lie, and you're trying to convince people, and you need to make sure you don't contradict yourself. So you have to refine it step by step.
That's exactly what we do.
Yes. I mean, we're fabricating something most of the time. There may be a grain of truth in it, but the rest is fabrication. So we just like we need to make that story convincible, and so you just have to. Sometimes I can't continue because I'm not sure, how this is going to be impacting the rest of the story. So I just have to stop and go back and make sure I have fixed it the best I can, and then move on. So there won't be any contradictions that I have to later go back and forth and try to fix, and they may be harder to fix then.
See, I tend to write the complete opposite way. I am a just write it.
Yes.
And then go back and edit the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have different styles.
But what I found out, I did a terrible thing, because like I have my character breaks her leg, and so she's on crutches for a good portion of the book. And then somewhere along the way, I forgot about the crutches.
Yes, that could happen.
So I'm like, well, maybe nobody will notice.
Yeah, maybe.
Of course, I just outed that. So
Yeah.
It's not okay, but it is what it is. But if I had written more along the lines of what you're saying, that contradiction wouldn't be there.
Yes, yeah. Because if you have to have like down the line, 3 scenes down the line, a scene where she's going to run, she can't be on crutches. You have to figure out a way out of it before she gets to that stage. So maybe she needs to, be on crutches for a shorter time or something.
Maybe she should have just sprained her leg as opposed to breaking it.
Yes, yeah. So
I have
sometimes
her
I have
climbing
to
a
adjust the
mountain.
stage.
She's climbing a mountain and I forgot all about it.
Yeah.
So I understand the value of what you were saying with writing and going back and making sure that your lie has no holes in it.
Yes, yes, that's exactly.
I think it's funny to look at it that way. But yeah, that's an accurate way to describe what we're doing because we are creating worlds.
Yes.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. So you would say that you edit as you go.
Yeah. But then at the end, I edit everything.
Yes. And how many times do you think that you go through it when it's finished?
Well, when I did the revenge story, I maybe went through it twice.
Okay.
And then, I did send it to editors. Like I hired one editor, and then I realized, there were many mistakes in what she was like writing. Uh, or like some of the grammar was not,
Mhm.
she wasn't catching it. So I hired another one, and then I had a proofreader. So after the editing, I would, I would have to change things or correct things. They were more like line editors than, more deep things. So I would just have to fix stuff or tenses or a
Wow.
minor word choices or yeah. So there was like that stage after I did all my edits, and after the proofreading was done, I did proofread it myself
Mhm.
and had other people help proofread it too, because everybody will find different things.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, and then I started trying to find a publisher. I tried to find an agent and then a publisher, and then in the final end I self-published it because
Mhm.
I couldn't find an agent, and I found a publisher, but things didn't work out.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I think you said something very interesting there, um, with the editor who wasn't editing,
No.
wasn't catching things. So I think that that is an important thing to point out for anybody who's going to watch this is just because they call themselves an editor or just because they're an editor doesn't mean they're the right editor for you.
Yes, that's very true.
Mhm.
So you really have to do your research before you hire them and pay them money, because it will end up being a waste.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they have to understand what your vision is too, and what your purpose is, and who your intended audience is, and so they
Yeah,
can make sure that they're not causing you to lose the spirit of the story.
that's very true. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. So, when we're doing the editing process, we are going to go through at least a couple of edits, and we do need to have other people's eyes on our work.
Mm-hmm.
Was
Yeah.
it difficult to let other people read through it and critique it?
No, it was always good. Like I would take these critiques and I would think about them, I sleep on them, and then decide whether I want to implement them or not.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm always telling my students. You have to have someone else's eyes on your work. You have to. And then
Yes.
because they said they think this or that doesn't mean that you have to take their advice.
No, it's just their opinion.
That's exactly right. And not everybody's going to like what you do
No,
at
some
all.
people like it, some people are okay, some people will hate it.
Right.
You really tell.
Mhm. and the whole point is, does the story need told? Well, yes, the story needs told. So we're
Yeah,
looking at it.
and there would be somebody who would like to read it or would find it helpful or entertaining.
That's right. And that is really the whole point. I
Yeah,
think that's something that students have to really understand is, and like we were talking about earlier, there is an oversaturated market,
yes,
books and stories, and we need to make sure that we are writing about themes that matter, themes that really strike the human chord and mean something to people.
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. I want to make a difference with the things that I write. I want someone to read this, like just like with your book, you want someone to read that, especially a young person, and to be challenged or to grow, to think about new ideas, so
Yeah, I think, wow, that really happened.
right. Does it say anywhere on the cover or anywhere that that's loosely based on a true story?
Actually, it was so loosely based that I did not do that
Yeah. Yeah.
because you wouldn't be able to identify the people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we don't want to do that.
No, no, because
Yeah.
I mean they may be offended. Because I mean these people, I knew them very, very superficially. So what I invented for them are psyches and mannerisms and backstories that are not definitely not their stories, or they may not be that's their character. I
Right.
mean they have a different psychology than
Right.
the people in the book.
How do you go
So,
about building characters?
well, I just kind of think about people I know and how they are kind of put together,
Mhm.
and then I can do that based on a combination of people or just something I'll come up with, but based on this kind of background thinking.
Mhm. Mhm. Always watching people. I love to
Yeah,
people watch. Mhm.
yes, I've always sat there and watched it because I always tend to be not a big talker.
Mhm.
So since I was a child, I just sat around and watched and absorbed what was going on around me.
Mhm.
And because when you're talking, I don't think you pay attention to what's going on around you.
Right.
So I was just sitting there. And plus, I was an only child. So I went with my mom and my dad to like adult functions, and I was around older people.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they sat there and had long discussions, conversations, and told stories, and I wasn't playing, I was sitting there
Right.
watching. And
Right.
I kept kind of, got stuck in that role of the watcher.
Right. Wow. That's that's interesting though that you can take a look at that and recognize that as part of your development to being who you are today and your ability
Yeah,
to write characters and tell stories that initially started in those days as a
yes,
child.
yes, because
Mhm.
I mean, as a child you absorb a lot of stuff, and then people are more relaxed around you, so they are more likely to show you their real selves, or that's their real lives. So
Right,
there's no, I mean, smoke screens or anything, so you can see them unfiltered.
right. So I think then we could use that information, and for the students watching this today, we can filter that by saying, watch how adults are around children.
Yes,
They're gonna loosen up.
around us and around each other,
Hmm.
and how they, I mean, how they live when you show up with your parents, and how they live when you don't show up with your parents, when you're by yourself. So you can see their messy house, or whatever, kind of how their routines are. They're not going to be put together, and they're not going to present themselves the best way possible.
That's right. We have to let them be real.
Yes.
Mhm.
So and when you're a child, they tend to be real in front of you because they think you're a child, you won't pay attention, or you won't remember.
That's such a wrong way of thinking.
Yeah, yes. I mean, maybe some children don't remember, but we don't know.
Right. Well, you were a watcher and an
Yeah.
observer. And so definitely I was a lot myself because I was fairly shy and I didn't warm up to people quickly
Yeah.
when I was a little girl. And so I remember some pretty interesting characters from my childhood.
Yes, yes. There are lots of interesting characters from childhood. Like once you become an adult, they are always uh, kind of packaging themselves.
Yes. Yes, hiding. I tell the students, we haven't gotten to this part in the semester yet, but I tell them your characters need to have quirks.
Yes.
Yeah, and I had a student last year, he really didn't like that word. He didn't like the fact that I was telling him that his characters needed to be weird. And I was like, no, I'm not telling you weird. I'm telling you we're all strange in some way. We are.
Yeah.
And so what ways are your characters odd? Do they untuck their sheets every night before they go to bed? Do they, because we all have different foibles, I guess would be the word, you know. We all have very unique things that we do, and so should your
Yeah,
characters.
absolutely.
That's what makes them interesting. That's what makes them
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Otherwise, they'd be machines.
Mhm, mhm. Do you find yourself still as an adult watching people and
Yeah.
getting information? Yeah, me too.
Yeah. It just because I still don't talk much,
Mhm.
so I just end up watching.
That's funny. One of my favorite places to watch now is when I'm standing in line at a grocery store or,
Yes.
wherever I'm in line. I like to see what people are buying.
Yes, yeah, watching, and I'm a dietitian. That makes me even double interested, how much pop they have in their cart, what things they have, how much, uh,
Right, right.
you
Well,
know,
I want you to see
like,
my cart.
yes, yeah. So that's interesting.
It is. I always feel like there are stories to be had inside people's grocery carts.
Yes,
Mhm.
tells you a lot about their lifestyles.
It does. It absolutely does. Even the things that they choose to read, or the things that they look at while they're in line, or the things that they're willing to say to each other in public.
Yes,
I find those kind of things very interesting. It's great fodder for characters of our own in the future.
yeah. Hmm.
Very good. I like it. So do you see yourself continuing to do this for the rest of forever?
Yeah, why not?
Absolutely.
As long as I have ideas, I write down. I mean, I have times when I have more ideas than others, but there is always something, either like an old idea that I will dig up, dig out, or just whatever I'm working on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I sure would love to hear one of your grandmother's stories.
Yeah, from what I remember, that they were very interesting.
Mhm.
But what they were, I don't know. I just remember two of them. That's it.
Well, I think that's your homework, is you need to write one.
Yeah, I am thinking about it. Yeah. I just have to finish whatever I'm working on now. I decided I'm not interrupting it anymore because I mean these stories are such old folklore that they can wait.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They can. They absolutely
Yeah.
can. And this one you've been writing since you were like 16?
Yes. I mean not continuously. Like I wrote it when I was 15, then I lost the papers, and like when I was pregnant with my second son, I rewrote it
Mhm.
on a notebook. And then again, when one of them was in kindergarten, I rewrote it. On another notebook. I had the old notebook and I moved it. And then I took a class and I wrote the first, was it 40 pages, I think. And then I started kind of building on that
Mhm. Mhm.
as I went along.
That makes me wonder. I wrote a book when I was, well, a book when I was 16 too.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to that. I think that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, sometimes it is, yes.
It was straight up a cheesy romance, and that's just not what I like to write.
Yeah, that's what mine was. It was just like, they went here and they fell in love and they got married. That was like the whole thing.
Right.
That was like the last,
Mhm.
kind of part. I mean, now it is like, I don't know, over like maybe 100 pages, that part. I mean, it's like, how did they fall in love?
Mhm.
So it was more like an outline
Right,
than
exactly.
novel. Because
Exactly.
you can't like write that and tell people, okay, she went to the farm and then they fell in love and got married. But then
The
how did
end.
they fall in love?
Right. Well,
There should have been, things that happened to lead them to fall in love.
yeah, exactly. Interesting things that we would find, um, what would be the word? I'm trying to think of what am I trying to say? Well, things that would be not like outside of the scope of understanding of people, like, oh yeah, that's familiar, but it's
Yeah,
different. Mhm. That's what makes it intriguing.
yes, yes.
It is. Okay, would you have any words of advice, specific like words of advice that you would want to give to our new writers who will be watching this video?
Well, I mean, write what you love to write. Write what you feel is this you want to write, and not because somebody told you write about this, or this is what everybody is reading these days.
Mhm.
Because I mean, I don't know, you can't force it.
Right, right. Not a good story.
No.
Mhm. Can't force it.
And I have read or books where it is forced,
Mhm.
or you can tell it's like a formula they followed. And I mean, the book is not too bad. It's okay. Sometimes you have to suspend,
Mhm.
disbelief quite a bit, but it
Right,
seems like to be just goes on and on. It's just not very interesting.
right. So write what you want to write, write what you're passionate about.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that there might have been a book that was written about that subject, or a couple of books that people really loved, and then everybody else wanted to write a book about the same topic, and it was forced, and they weren't
Mhm.
ready for it, or it wasn't their idea. They just
Right,
wanted to write it because they thought that will land them a contract, and maybe it did. Maybe
right,
that's why they're published. I don't know.
right, right. Yeah. I mean, there's not necessarily a set formula for success
No,
in this world of writing.
no, it's just, I mean, you read lots of advice and stuff, and it's just, you don't know what to follow, what not to follow,
Mhm.
because sometimes it even contradicts itself. And actually, I used to go to this group for children's writers,
Mhm.
and somebody wrote a book and was trying to find a publisher, trying to find an agent, and she was going to a conference and submitted uh, like the first, I don't know how many pages, 10 pages of her novel to this agent. And in his critique, what he said, like, the best part of your book is such and such, and the worst part on is such and such. That's in the second paragraph. But it turned out they were the same thing.
Oh,
So at one point he liked this and thought it was so wonderful. At another point, he didn't like it.
mm,
And then he was like embarrassed and was like, well, I just had a baby and I'm not sleeping well. And so, I mean, maybe didn't read it in one shot. Maybe it took him, he read a little bit here, a little bit there,
right.
or wrote his critique at different times, and then at different time it struck him in a different way.
Right.
I mean, we don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yes.
Yeah, don't. That's an important component, is never take any of that personally.
No, because they have their own opinions. They just, it's when they read it, what mood they are in.
Mhm. Mhm.
Are they hungry? Are they not hungry? Are they just bored? Well, you don't know what's going on in their lives.
Right. Right. Not at all. But that made me giggle when you said, "Are they hungry?" Because I bought my daughter a sign that says "hangry."
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if she's
That's
hungry,
true.
she gets real upset.
Yes, that's me.
It just makes me laugh. So that's hanging in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Just a reminder to eat.
Are
Then
you?
you'll be happy. Yeah,
So perhaps the critic was hangry when he
maybe. Yeah,
looked at it the second time, but that is interesting.
yes,
Yeah. We have to take that with a grain of salt, but keep pursuing what we love.
yes. We just do what we have to do.
That's right. That's right. Any other
And
final words?
words, well, I mean, if they are reaching the stage of publishing, they have to be, I mean, careful, because you have publishers that, I mean, I don't know anything about the big publishers because I have not dealt with them, only from reading,
Mhm.
and I'm sure people can find stuff to read about it. But I mean, the small publishers, they can claim they are publishers, and and they have a name, but in the final end, if you look very carefully at what they are doing, is that they are self-publishing,
Mhm.
and so they will do the help to self-publish, with then they'll share half of the profits.
Right.
So, and then they have like different conditions, and of course you have to deal with their personalities and things they like, things they don't like, and then in the final end, you can do it yourself. I
Mhm.
mean, that's kind of what happened to me,
Mhm.
because I thought I had a publisher, and she there was a contract she sent me in the mail or in the email, and she asked me to go show it to a lawyer. My lawyer, is if I had a lawyer. So I found a lawyer, and he read it, and then he suggested we do a change in the percentage I get if we sell it to TV or something. And then she just said, I rescind my offer. And she just,
Oh.
didn't even negotiate. And then this lawyer said, you know what? I think this person is a self-publisher. She doesn't have really a publishing company.
Mhm.
And when I looked like carefully at the couple of books she had published before for other people, I realized, yeah, that's true. It seems like it is on Amazon,
Mhm.
and there's not much. I mean, she has a company. The company has a name, but there is not much traction on Facebook or like the web or anything.
Right.
So I figured, okay, I can make my own publishing company and publish my book.
Right. We're going to spend some
I
time
just
this
had to spend
semester
like
looking at
about,
things like that.
yeah, I just had to spend a few months figuring out how to format things and publish them on Amazon. And you can find people who do that,
Mhm.
and you pay them some money, and they'll do it for you.
Mhm.
So you don't have to have a publisher per se, because the publisher is not going to change your book. It's going to be self-published, as far as the people who are like judging you or judging your abilities. They'll be considering you a self-published author,
Mhm.
even though there is a name on it and everything. But
Right.
but
Right.
then on the bottom you'll have to write published by Amazon or whatever, and then you'll be kind of, you give yourself away.
Right. Right. So there's a lot of research that needs to be done.
Yeah, Yeah, and not everybody who says I'm a publisher, you just kind of say, great, I found a publisher, I can publish my book now. You just have to, be careful.
Mhm, mhm. And avoid those places that want you to pay them.
Yes, yeah, you don't want that's something that, yeah,
Yeah, we don't want to go down those routes
no,
at all.
no. They should be paying you, or
Yes,
at least publishing the book at their expense.
that's right. That's right. Well, we are at 3:30, and I
All
don't
right,
want to hold you up, but I
very good.
certainly do appreciate your willingness to come and join me in this project. I want my students to have access to a variety of authors, so
Yes, it's a
they
great idea.
are hearing from many people, so they can get different tidbits from all of us and then formulate their own plans.
Yeah, yeah, because all of us go through different experiences and have different kinds of books we publish, and some of us are more prolific than others, and so it is good to have a variety of different opinions, and yeah, and I had a great time talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. This was very fun. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.
Okay, very good.
I'm going to say thank you, but then I'm going to be still on here for a second. So
All right, all right.
thank you for being with, I'm going to say us, because the students will be seeing this here
Yeah.
shortly. So thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome.